Did it take much coaxing from yourself and others to get the names that signed on to this amicus brief to do so? Or did they really understand the gravity of what Donald Trump was alleging, that it was a no-brainer for them?
No, it really didn't. In fact, this brief started with a number of four-star general officers, admirals, and service secretaries from the Army, Air Force, and Navy working together to write the brief, because we were deeply concerned that first of all, no justice on the Supreme Court has served in the military. So they need for people like us, former retired military defense officials, to bring to their attention the national security implications of the case that they're hearing, because we think it would gravely threaten our national security and our standing in the world if the court were to find that presidents could violate criminal laws without consequence, without accountability, without being able to be charged and prosecuted for them, particularly in those instances where they would use the military and direct the military in turn to violate the law in the way they carried out his orders.
Secretary Caldera, I want to pull up this piece from MSNBC, retired military leaders warning of the threat to democracy if Trump's found to be immune. And this piece specifically jumped out to me. Memorably, at the federal appeals court argument earlier this year, a judge raised the prospect that if presidents are immune from prosecution, as Trump claims, then they could order the military to murder their political rivals. It was interesting, of course, there were members of the court who didn't want to walk through all of those potential hypotheticals. But I do want you to illustrate for us and for our audience the types of inflection points that make you particularly nervous.
Yes, well, that example is a really important one, because it's not the president who's going to assassinate the political rivals or even foreign leaders. He's going to order a military unit, SEAL Team 6 or someone, to do it. The former president wanted to use the military for things like quelling domestic protests, Americans exercising their First Amendment rights to protest of speech. He wanted to use the military to quell that. He talked about using the military to take control of election boxes and results. He has, in a number of instances, talked about using the military to accomplish things that are unlawful under our system, under the laws that have been passed by Congress. And the challenge for military leaders is that they also have sworn a duty to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the United States, and they have an independent duty not to follow unlawful orders. That is, they can be prosecuted for following unlawful orders. Ever since World War II and the Nuremberg trials of Nazis, the idea of that you could defend yourself by saying, I was just following superior orders, no longer holds. If you follow an unlawful order, you can be prosecuted. And so what we fear would happen is he would direct his political appointees, the Secretary of Defense, the service secretaries, to tell the military to do something that is unlawful and under our system. In transmitting those orders to the military leaders and expecting them to transmit them down to units and soldiers, it would break the bond that has to exist, the trust that has to exist between political appointees and career military leaders. That is the underpinning of how our system of defense works, so what we call civil-military relations and civilian control of the military. It would tear it apart, because on the one hand, the political leaders would be saying, follow the orders of the president, and on the other hand, the military leaders would be saying, I can't do that because that's an unlawful order. So that would create chaos in the Department of Defense, chaos in the ranks. It would undermine public support for the military to see their military being used for political purposes. And it sends a terrible message to the rest of the world about how we work, that we are not truly a country committed to the rule of law, but we're a country where the president can order the military to follow his instructions, even if they involve breaking the law.
Mr. Secretary, I want to pick up on that a little bit more, because I think in all of this, for me, that is probably the most important aspect of this. What Trump's argument does in terms of really squeezing down on rank-and-file servicemen and women, putting them in an untenable position while lifting himself above the law. How do you and military officials assess the potential damage and confusion that will, create among the rank and file members of our armed services who now find themselves, should this go sideways, should the court says, yeah, Trump does have some level of immunity here, and that, our soldiers ostensibly are now in the awkward position of having to take the type of orders you were just describing. What is your sense among the military personnel, how they're looking at this and the potential concerns they may have?
And Michael, of course, this is not just about former President Trump. We don't want any president of any party ever in the future to have the immunity from criminal prosecution if he or she were to violate criminal laws. But we believe it would destroy the unity that has to exist in the military. The military operates through a chain of command. It operates by irreflexively just following the orders that you're given, but it operates because we share a sense that the reason these orders were given was to protect the nation from foreign enemies, was to defend ourselves, and that we are all on the same page. We are all supporting the Constitution. We are all doing what we needs to be done to protect our country within the rule of law. And now all of a sudden you're being faced with a situation where you're not sure. You're getting an order from the president, but there's another voice that's telling you, wait, that's unlawful, and I'm not supposed to follow unlawful orders. And then what do you do? And that's just a recipe for chaos and division within our military that we believe would seriously harm the way our military operates, destroy morale, make it harder to recruit, make it harder to gain the support of the American people for our military. We spend almost $1 trillion in support of our military and our national security defense. And if the American people think that the military is being misused for political purposes and to just answer to the will of the president in ways that are unlawful, are they really going to keep telling their representatives to support us in the way that we would want our military to be supported? We think all that is at risk.
All right. Appreciate that very much, Secretary Caldera. Thank you so much for being with us. Next.